afternoon. Please be seated. Welcome to All Saints Peterborough for this festive Christmas concert where you get to sing along with some of your favorite hymns and carols. If you've been here before, the format is slightly changed, but just roll with it. We're trying to engage in a broader spectrum. So, everything you need is in the bulletin that you have. If you don't have a bulletin, put your hand up and a sides person will bring you one. The bolded parts are for your response. Oh, a bulletin is needed here at the front. Randy? Could you bring two, please? And the hymns are open for everyone unless it says solo for the choir, then let them sing. They're amazing. Welcome to the seat right there, sorry. Welcome this evening, and we hope you enjoy this. And welcome this evening, and we hope you enjoy this service. Thank you. We begin with a land acknowledgement for the very land that we're standing upon this evening. All Saints Anglican Church sits on the land gifted to the parish, but originally stolen from Indigenous siblings. We honor the land that this church is built on, and we honor its original occupants, the Michisagi Anishinaabeg peoples. We celebrate the imaginations of Indigenous peoples, their amazing survival throughout centuries of oppression and genocide, and we are grateful for their knowledge of the land and their example of endurance and strength. As the Anglican Church of Canada, we deeply regret the part we played in residential schools, and we are committed to right relationships and recompense with our Indigenous siblings.
Good afternoon. Our first reading today is an excerpt from a classic, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. Whoop-hoo to the whoos, he was grinchiously humming. They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a moment or two, then the whoos down in Whoville will all cry boo-hoo. That's a noise, grinned the Grinch, that I simply must hear. So he paused, and the Grinch put a hand to his ear. And he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, and it started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, this sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so. But it was merry, very. He stared down at Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes, and then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or other, it came just the same. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. He puzzled 3 hours, till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville, they say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, He whizzed with his load through the bright morning light and brought back the toys and the food for the feast. And he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire, Jack Frost nipping at your nose, Yuletide carols being sung by a choir, and folks dressed from head to toe. Everybody knows a turkey and some mistletoe help to make the season bright. Tiny tots with their eyes all aglow will find it hard to sleep tonight. They know that Santa's on his way. He's loaded lots of toys and goodies on his sleigh. And every mother's child is gonna spy to see if reindeers really know how to fly. So I'm offering a simple phrase to kids from 1 to 92. Although it's been said many times, many ways, Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas to you.
Friends, as lovely as the applause is, I wonder if we could hold it all till the end. Thank you.
Oh
It is 2:00 in the morning, and most of us men are asleep in their dugouts. Yet I could not sleep myself before writing to you of the wonderful events of Christmas Eve. In truth, what happened seems almost like a fairy tale, and if I hadn't been through it myself, I would scarce believe it. Just imagine, while you and the family sang carols before the fire there in London, I did the same with enemy soldiers here on the battlefields of France. As I wrote before, there has been little serious fighting of late. The first battles of the war left so many dead that both sides have held back until replacements could come from home. So we have mostly stayed in our trenches and waited. But what a terrible waiting it has been, knowing that any moment an artillery shell might land and explode beside us in the trench, killing or maiming several men. And in daylight, not daring to lift our heads above ground for fear of a sniper's bullet. And the rain, it has fallen almost daily. Of course, it collects right in our trenches where we must bail it out with pots and pans. And with the rain has come mud, a good foot or more deep. It splatters and cakes everything. One new recruit got his feet stuck in it and then his hands too when he tried to get out. Through all this, we couldn't help feeling curious about the German soldiers across the way. After all, they faced the same dangers we did and slogged about in the same muck. What's more, their first trench was only 50 yards from ours. Between us lay no man's land, bordered on both sides by barbed wire, yet they were close enough we sometimes heard their voices. Of course, we hated them when they killed our friends, but other times we joked about them and almost felt we had something in common. And now it seems they felt the same. Just yesterday morning, Christmas Eve day, we had our first good freeze. Cold as we were, we welcomed it because at least the mud froze solid. Everything was tinged white frost, while a bright sun shone over all. Perfect Christmas weather. During the day, there was little shelling or rifle fire from either side, and as darkness fell on our Christmas Eve, the shooting stopped entirely. Our first complete silence in months. We hoped it might promise a peaceful holiday, but we didn't count on it. We've been told the Germans might attack and try to catch us off guard. I went to the dugout to rest, and lying on my cot, I must have drifted asleep. All at once, my friend John was shaking me awake, saying, "Come and see what the Germans are doing." I grabbed my rifle, stumbled out into the trench, and stuck my head cautiously above the sandbags. I never hoped to see a stranger in more lovely sight. Clusters of tiny lights were shining all along the German line, left and right, as far as the eye could see. "What is it?" I asked in bewilderment, and John answered, "Christmas trees." And so it was. The Germans had placed Christmas trees in front of their trenches, lit by candle or lantern like beacons of goodwill. And then we heard their voices raised in song. Stille Nacht, heilig Nacht. This carol may not have yet been familiar to us in Britain, but John knew it and translated, "Silent night, holy night." I've never heard one lovelier or more meaningful in that quiet, clear night. It's dark, softened by a first quarter moon. When the song finished, the men in our trenches applauded. Yes, British soldiers applauding Germans. Then one of our own men started singing, and we all joined in. "The first Noel, the angel did say." In truth, we sounded not nearly as good as the Germans with their fine harmonies, but they responded with enthusiastic applause of their own, and then they began another, "O Tannenbaum, O Tannenbaum." Then we replied, "O come, all ye faithful." But this time they joined in, singing the words in Latin, "Adeste fideles, British and German harmonizing across no man's land. I would have thought nothing could be more amazing, but what had come next was more so. English, come over! We heard one of them shout. You know shoot, we know shoot. There in the trenches, we look at each other in bewilderment. Then one of us shouted jokingly, you come over! To our astonishment, we saw two figures rise from the trench, climb over their barbed wire, and advanced unprotected across no man's land. One of them called, send officer to talk! I saw one of our men lift his rifle to the ready, and no doubt others did the same, but our captain called out, hold your fire! Then he climbed out and went to meet the Germans halfway. We heard them talking, and a few minutes later, the captain came back with a German cigar in his mouth. We've agreed there'll be no shooting before midnight tomorrow, he announced. But sentries are to remain on duty, and the rest of you stay alert. Across the way, we make out groups of 2 or 3 men starting out of the trenches and coming towards us. Then some of us were climbing out too, and in minutes more, there we were in no man's land, over 100 soldiers and officers of each side, shaking hands with men we'd been trying to kill just hours earlier. Before long, a bonfire was built, and around it we mingled, British khaki and German gray. I must say, the Germans were better dressed with fresh uniforms for the holiday. Only a couple of our men knew German, but more of the Germans knew English. I asked one of them why that was. Because many have worked in England, he said. Before all of this, I was a waiter at the Hotel Cecil. Perhaps I waited on your table. Perhaps you did, I said, laughing. He told me he had a girlfriend in London and that the war had interrupted their plans for marriage. I said, don't worry, we'll have you beat by Easter. Then you can come back and marry that girl. He laughed at that. Then he asked if I'd send her a postcard he'd give me later, and I promised I would. Another German had been a porter at Victoria Station. He showed me a picture of his family back in Munich. His eldest sister was so lovely. I told him I should like to meet her someday. He beamed and said he would like that very much and gave me his family's address. Even those who could not converse still exchanged gifts, our cigarettes for their cigars, our tea for their coffee, our corned beef for their sausage, badges and buttons from uniforms, changed owners, and one of our lads walked off with the infamous spiked helmet. I myself traded a jackknife for a leather equipment belt, a fine souvenir to show when I get home. Newspapers, too, changed hands, and the Germans howled with laughter at ours. They assured us that France was finished and Russia nearly beaten, too. We told them that was nonsense, and one of them said, well, you believe your newspaper and we will believe ours. Clearly, they are lied to. Yet after meeting these men, I wonder how truthful our own newspapers have been. These are not the savage barbarians we've read so much about. They are men with homes and families, hopes and fears, principles, and yes, love of country. In other words, men like ourselves. Why are we led to believe otherwise? As it grew late, a few more songs were traded around the fire, and then all joined in for I'm Not Lying to You, Auld Lang Syne. Then we parted with promises to meet again tomorrow, and even some talk of a football match. I was just starting back to the trenches when an older German clutched my arm. My God, he said, why cannot we have peace and all just go home? I told him gently, that you must ask your emperor. He looked at me then searchingly. Perhaps, my friend, but also we must ask our hearts. And so, dear sister, tell me, has there ever been such a Christmas Eve in all history? And what does it mean, this impossible befriending of enemies? For the fighting here, of course, it means regrettably little. Decent fellows those soldiers may be, but they follow orders, and we do the same.
Besides, we are here to stop their army and send it home, and never could we shirk that duty. Still, one cannot help imagine what would happen if the spirit shown here were caught by the nations of the world. Of course, disputes must always arise, but what if our leaders were to offer well wishes in place of warnings, songs in place of slurs, presents in place of reprisals? Would not all war end at once? All nations say they want peace. Yet on this Christmas morning, I wonder if we want it quite enough. Your loving brother, Tom.
I hope you're here for a long time, and maybe you're still here when I'm finished. It was Christmas Eve, 1881. I was 15 years old and feeling like the world had caved in on me because there just hadn't been enough money to buy me the rifle that I'd wanted so bad that year for Christmas. We did the chores early that night for some reason. I just figured Pa wanted a little extra time so we could read in the Bible. So after supper was over, I took my boots off and stretched out in front of the fireplace and waited for Pa to get down the old Bible. I was still feeling sorry for myself, and to be honest, I wasn't in much of a mood to read scriptures. But Pa didn't get the Bible. Instead, he bundled up and went outside. I couldn't figure it out because we had already done all the chores. I didn't worry about it long, though. I was too busy wallowing in self-pity. Soon, Pa came back in. It was a cold, clear night out, and there was ice in his beard. "Come on, Matt," he said. "Bundle up good. It's cold out tonight." I was really upset then. Not only wasn't I getting the rifle for Christmas, but now Pa was also dragging me out in the cold, and for no earthly reason that I could see. We'd already done all the chores, and I couldn't think of anything else that needed doing, especially not on a night like this. But I knew Pa was not very patient at dragging one's feet when he told them to do something, so I got up and put my boots back on, got my cap, coat, and mittens. Ma gave me a mysterious smile as I opened the door to leave the house. Something was up, but I didn't know what. Outside, I became even more dismayed. There, in front of the house, was the work team, already hitched to the big sled. Whatever it was we were going to do wasn't going to be a short, quick little job. I could tell. We never hitched up the big sled unless we were going to haul a big load. Pa was already up on the seat, reins in hand. I reluctantly climbed up beside him. The cold was already biting at me. I wasn't happy. When I was on, Pa pulled the sled around the house and stopped in front of the woodshed. He got off and I followed. "I think we'll put on the high sideboards," he said. "Here, help me." The high sideboards. It had been a bigger job than I wanted to do with just the low sideboards on. But whatever it was we were going to do would be a lot bigger with the high sideboards on. When we'd exchanged the sideboards, Pa went into the woodshed and came out with an armload of wood, the wood I'd spent all summer hauling down from the mountain, and then all fall sawing into blocks and splitting. What was he doing? Finally, I said something. "Pa," I asked, "what are you doing?" "You been to the widow Jensen's lately?" he asked. The widow Jensen lived about 2 miles down the road. Her husband had died a year or so before and left her with 3 children, the oldest being 8. Sure, I'd been by, but so what? "Yeah," I said, "why?" "I rode by just today," Pa said. "Little Jakey was out digging around in the woodpile trying to find a few chips. They're out of wood, Matt." That was all he said, and then he turned and went back into the woodshed for another armload of wood. I followed him. We loaded the sled so high that I began to wonder if the horses would be able to pull it. Finally, Pa called a halt to our loading. Then we went to the smokehouse, and Pa took down a big ham and a side of bacon. He handed them to me and told me to put them in the sled and wait. When he returned, he was carrying a sack of flour over his right shoulder and a smaller sack of something in his left hand. "What's in the little sack?" I asked. "Shoes. They're out of shoes. Little Jakey just had gunny sacks wrapped around his feet when he went out into the woodpile this morning. I got the children a little candy, too. Just wouldn't be Christmas without a little candy." We rode the 2 miles to Widow Jensen's pretty much in silence. I tried to think through what Pa was doing. We didn't have much by worldly standards. Of course, we did have a big wood pile, though most of what was left now was still in the form of logs that I would have to saw into blocks and split before we could use it. We also had meat and flour, so we could spare that. But I knew we didn't have any money, so why was Pa buying them shoes and candy? Really, why was he doing any of this? Widow Jensen had closer neighbors than us. It shouldn't have been our concern. We came in from the blind side of the Jensen house and unloaded the wood as quietly as possible. And then we took the meat and flour and shoes to the door. We knocked. The door opened a crack and a timid voice said, "Who is it?" "Lucas Miles, ma'am, and my son Matt. Could we come in for a bit?" Widow Jensen opened the door and let us in. She had a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. The children were wrapped in another and were sitting in front of the fireplace, a very small fire that hardly gave off any heat at all. Widow Jensen fumbled with a match and finally lit the lamp. We brought you a few things, ma'am," Pa said, and set down the sack of flour. I put the meat on the table, and then Pa handed the sack that had the shoes in it. She opened it hesitantly and took the shoes out one pair at a time. There was a pair for her and one for each of the children. Sturdy shoes, the best, the shoes that would last. I watched her carefully. She bit her lower lip to keep it from trembling, and then tears filled her eyes and started running down her cheeks. She looked up at Pa like she wanted to say something, but it wouldn't come out. "We brought a load of wood too, ma'am," Pa said. And then he turned to me and said, "Matt, go bring in the last for a while. Let's get the fire up to size and heat this place up." I wasn't the same person when I went back out to bring in the wood. I had a big lump in my throat, and much as I hate to admit it, there were tears in my eyes too. In my mind, I kept seeing those 3 kids huddled around the fireplace, and their mother standing there with tears running down her cheeks and so much gratitude in her heart that she couldn't speak. My heart swelled within me, and a joy filled my soul that I'd never known before. I had given at Christmas many times before, but never when it had made so much difference. I could see we were literally saving the lives of these people. I soon had the fire blazing and everyone's spirits soared. The kids started giggling when Pa handed them each a piece of candy, and Widow Jensen looked on with a smile that probably hadn't crossed her face for a long time. She finally turned to us. "God bless you," she said. "I know the Lord himself has sent you. The children and I have been praying that he would send one of his children to spare us." In spite of myself, the lump returned to my throat and the tears welled up in my eyes again. I'd never thought of Pa in those exact terms before, but after Widow Jensen mentioned it, I could see that it was probably true. I was sure that a better man than Pa had never walked the earth, save one. I started remembering all the times he had gone out of his way for Ma and me, and many others. The list seemed endless as I thought on it. Pa insisted that everyone try on the shoes before we left. I was amazed when they all fit, and I wondered how he had known what sizes to get. Then I guessed that it was on an errand for the Lord that the Lord would make sure he got the sizes right. Tears were running down Widow Jensen's face again when we stood up to leave. Pa took each of the kids in his big arms and gave them a hug. They clung to him and didn't want us to go. I could see that they missed their Pa, and I was glad that I still had mine. At the door, Pa turned to Widow Jensen and said, "The missus and me wanted to invite you and the children over for Christmas dinner tomorrow. The turkey will be more than the 3 of us can eat, and a man gets cantankerous if he has to eat turkey for too many meals. We'll be by to get you about 11. It'll be nice to have some little ones around again. Matt here hasn't been little for quite a spell." I was the youngest. My 2 older brothers and 2 older sisters were all married and had moved away. Widow Jensen nodded and said, "Thank you, Brother Miles. I don't have to say, 'May the Lord bless you.' I know for certain that he will." Out on the sled, I felt a warmth that came from deep within, and I didn't even notice the cold. When we had gone a ways, Pa turned to me and said, "Matt, I want you to know something. Your ma and me have been tucking a little money away here and there all year so we could buy that rifle for you. But we didn't quite have enough. Then yesterday, a man who owed me a little money from years back came by to make things square. Your ma and me were real excited, thinking that now we could get you that rifle. And I started into town this morning to do just that. But on the way, I saw a little Jakey out scratching in the woodpile with his feet wrapped in those gunny sacks, and I knew what I had to do. So, son, I spent the money for shoes and a little candy for those children. I hope you understand. I understood, and my eyes became wet with tears again. I understood very well, and I was so glad Pa had done it. Just then, the rifle seemed very low on my list of priorities. Pa had given me a lot more. He'd given me the look on Widow Jensen's face and the radiant smiles of her 3 children. For the rest of my life, whenever I saw any of the Jensens or split a block of wood, I remembered. And remembering brought back that same joy I felt riding home beside Pa that night. Pa had given me much more than a rifle that night. He had given me the best Christmas of my life.
It's Christmas time. There's no need to be afraid. At Christmas time, we let in light and banish shade. In our world of plenty, we can spread a smile of joy through your arms around the world at Christmas time. But say a prayer, pray for the other world at Christmas time. It's hard, but when you're having fun, there's a world outside your window, and it's a world of dread and fear, where the only one lonely is the bitter sting of cheese, and the Christmas bells that ring there are the clanging chimes of doom, where tonight they guided them instead of you. And there won't be snow in Africa this Christmas time. The greatest gift they'll get this year is life, where nothing ever grows, no rain, no river flow. Do they know it's Christmas time at all? Here
Well, here we are at the part of the evening for our free will offering. Feed them because it's Christmas time. It is something this parish does 365 days a year. We have a food security ministry here that costs us $40,000 a year. And that's a lot of money. And that's on top of all the other things we do. But the people who come to our door every single day don't just need food. They need friendship and compassion. They need generosity from us and grace. And we're so happy to be able to be at this corner of Sherbrooke and Rubidge, offering that to this community and this neighborhood and farther out into this city. So this is your opportunity to join in that work that we do and share the wealth and share the generosity and feed our neighbor. Thank you.
And the writing of the prophet Isaiah. The people walking in darkness are seeing a brilliant light. Upon those who dwell in a land of deep shadows, light is shining. God, you have made the nation greater. You have brought them abundant joy. They celebrate in your presence as with the harvest celebrations, or as warriors celebrate when dividing spoils. For the yoke that burdened them, the weight on their shoulders, the rod of their oppressors, you have shattered it as you did at the defeat in Midian. For every boot trampled in battle, every cloak that was dragged through blood is now used as fuel for the fire. For a child is born to us, an heir is given to us, upon whose shoulders dominion will rest. This one shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Strength of God, Eternal Protector, Champion of Peace. This dominion and this peace will grow without end, with David's throne and realm sustained with justice and fairness now and forever. The zeal of God omnipotent will accomplish it. reading from the Younger Testament and the account of the Gospel of Luke. 6 months later, the angel Gabriel was sent from God to a town in Galilee called Nazareth, to a young woman named Mary. She was engaged to a man named Joseph of the house of David. Upon arriving, the angel said to Mary, "Rejoice, highly favored one, God is with you. Blessed are you among women." Mary was deeply troubled by these words and wondered what the angel's greeting meant. The angel went on to say to her, "Do not be afraid, Mary. You have found favor with God. You will conceive and bear a son and give him the name Jesus, which means deliverance. His dignity will be great, and he will be called the only begotten Son of God. God will give Jesus a judgment seat of David, his ancestor, to rule over the house of Jacob forever, and his reign will never end." Mary said to the angel, "How can this be, since I have never been with a man?" The angel answered her, "The Holy Spirit will come upon you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you. Hence, the offspring to be born will be called Holy One of God. Know, too, that Elizabeth, your kinswoman, conceived a child in her old age. She who was thought to be infertile is now in her 6th month. Nothing is impossible with God." Mary said, "I am the servant of God. Let it be done to me as you say." With that, the angel left her.
A reading from the Younger Testament and the account of the Gospel of Luke. Within a few days, Mary set out and hurried to the hill country, to a town of Judah, where she entered Zachariah's house and greeted Elizabeth. As soon as Elizabeth heard Mary's greeting, the child leaped in her womb, and Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Spirit. In a loud voice, Elizabeth exclaimed, "Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb. But why am I so favored that the mother of the Messiah should come to me? The moment your greeting reached my ears, the child in my womb leaped for joy. Blessed is she who believed that what our God said to her would be accomplished." Mary said, "My soul proclaims your greatness, O God, and my spirit rejoices in you, my Savior. For you have looked with favor upon your lowly servant, and from this day forward all generations will call me blessed. For you, the Almighty, have done great things for me, and holy is your name. Your mercy reaches from age to age for those who fear you. You have shown strength with your arm. You have scattered the proud in their conceit. You have deposed the mighty from their thrones and raised the lowly to high places. You have filled the hungry with good things, while you have sent the rich away empty. You have come to the aid of Israel, your servant, mindful of your mercy, the promise you made to our ancestors, to Sarah and Abraham and their descendants forever."
Unto us has born a Son, King
Before we end with a brief prayer and a beautiful piece by the choir and our final hymn, I want to say thank you to a number of people. First, these young people from the Kawartha Youth Orchestra, Nevin, Johnny, Cody, and Duncan. And to our special guest, Bo Dixon. To everyone who read tonight so beautifully and with so much passion, I just so appreciate that. And to what I think is the best choir this side of the cathedral, right? All Saints Choir. And last but not least to you, thank you for coming. Thank you for your generosity and your participation. And we wish you a very joyous, happy, and healthy Christmas and New Year. Good thing we have a deacon in the house, or I'd forget to pray. I invite you to pray with me. God of unveiled truth, faithful flame in times of darkened sun and waning moon, as we journey through Advent, lift up our unknowing hearts and waken our sleeping love to announce the coming dawn of unexpected peace through Jesus the Christ, the one who is, and the one who is to come. Amen.
And now, as I send you out, go into the world, be light in the darkness, kindness amidst despair, embody hope and love of neighbor, and live out justice. Thanks be to God.
Gloria, 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 gloria.